Hi, welcome to today's video. My name is Paul. So this week's video is just sort of light-hearted, sort of catch up on what I've been doing recently. Nothing too heavy or serious. So this last few days or so, last week, I've been able to use a medium that I really don't use very much at all, and that's acrylic paint. So on screen you can see two paintings. On the right is one of my watercolors, and then on the left is one of the two acrylic paintings that I tried recently. Way back in the day, a long time ago, when I was young and I first getting into art, I did use acrylic paint. Acrylic paint and soft pastels were the two media that I was using the most back then. Then of course I stopped doing art for quite a long time, decades. And then when I got back into art about 5 years ago, I switched from using acrylic to using watercolor. And watercolor is sort of, in terms of wet paints, watercolor is the one that I would go to most. I just love using watercolor. I love the effects that you can get, those sort of wet in wet, very loose abstract effects. I think they work really well with landscapes. Acrylic, you can't really do that. You can't do it with oil or acrylic or gouache or any of those things. Even though gouache and acrylic are kind of water soluble, you're not going to be able to get the same effects that you can with watercolor paint. I think it's something to do with the way the watercolor interacts physically with the paper. Unlike other paints like acrylic, which for the most part dry on the surface of the paper, watercolor pigment dries by sort of sinking into and being absorbed into the fibers of the paper itself. And that's what's sort of giving you these special effects, if you like. But acrylic paint does offer something that you can't do with watercolor, and that's the sort of impasto style painting. So building up thicker layers and getting those sort of nice brush marks appearing. As the paint dries, it leaves those brush marks. You can't really do that with watercolor. You can do dry brush marks, but it's not the same thing. So this sort of impasto style is what I want to try and experiment with a little bit more. So I will be possibly trying to use some more acrylic paint over the next month or two. The paint that I used is actually some old tubes of acrylic paint that I found in the bottom of a cupboard. They've been lying there for at least 15, maybe 20 years. I was very surprised that they are still usable. I don't know what the shelf life of a tube of acrylic paint is, but I say these have been lying there for a long, long time. I didn't have many colors, and some of the colors didn't make it. They sort of solidified or something weird happened in the tube, but the black and the white were still fine. So it was, I think it's Mars black they call it, and titanium white. So that's just what I used. I just painted onto a piece of cardboard. It's just something I had lying around. It was the backing board of an old sketchbook. So I just ripped it off and used that to paint on. I didn't prime it or anything like that. It was just a piece of cardboard. I like to just sort of jump in and do these things, experiment and see what happens. So I'd say I'll be trying some more acrylic probably, and of course keep doing these sort of watercolor paintings as well. If you want to sort of keep up with the paintings that I'm doing in real time, as it were, because on YouTube I only show a small number of the paintings that I do. The place to go these days is probably Patreon. Now, you don't have to pay anything. It's visible to the public. If you want to join as a free member, you can. The only difference is you'll get an email every time I post something, because it's a bit irregular when I post. It's not absolutely every day or at the same time every week or anything like that. It's just when I finished a painting, I'll upload something. Anyway, it's there. There's a link in the description below if anybody's interested. I say, hopefully I'll get a chance to do a bit more acrylic, and I do want to experiment with this sort of impasto style of painting. It's very interesting. If you made it this far in the video, thank you for watching and listening. Hopefully a little catch up. It was sort of interesting. And hopefully see you again in next week's video.